So welcome everyone to our regular Monday meetup for Monday, April the 19th. And I'm joined this evening by Kevin Cairns of Metriks Entertainment Education Inc. Sometimes he's entertaining, I'm sure.
It was the mic. It was the mic that did
it. I think it was the mic. I'm thinking DJ, right? I actually had a client whose company's name, his last name is Metrik, and his company name is Metrik Entertainment. So I'm sorry, it was an honest slip there. There you go. So I'm Angela Pereira. Sometimes you're together host of our regular weekly meetups. I own a company called First Line Education, and we're educating brand new grads up to people about their fifth year of practice in the clinical assessment and therapeutic exercise area. And what I'll do is I'm going to hand this over to, let's say, Chris to introduce himself, and we'll just kind of go around and everyone can say where they're joining us from and what kind of kin work you're doing currently. So Chris, over to you.
All right, my name is Chris Chorney. I'm an RKin. I've been an RKin forever. And I'm an ergonomist right now, but currently looking for work. So just trying to get back to doing some of these assessments again as a side gig and maybe even full time. So just trying to get as much info as I can.
Great, great. Now, did your work situation change, Chris? Are you moving from one area of kin to another?
Well, so I was doing ergonomics for about 10 years, corporate ergo. And then my contract ended, unfortunately, due to COVID. So I tried some case management for a while. It wasn't really my thing. I enjoy the human interaction a little bit more, hands-on a little bit more. So I'm currently in transition and then looking to just kind of capitalize on some of my previous experience with FAE or FCEs and PDAs and all that good stuff.
Nice. We're going to keep you in mind. Okay.
Yeah, please do.
Over to you. Yeah, well, definitely. That's what this group is all about, networking and looking for opportunities, right? So happy to help you. Emma, do you want to say hello?
Sure. I graduated in 2018. I'm living right now in Toronto, and I'm looking to get into seniors wellness as my niche, I guess.
Great, great. Good for you. Good for you. Darcy, you are joining us from the East Coast.
Yeah, so it's 8 o'clock here. I don't have to worry about the 7 o'clock hustle. I moved to PI about a year and a half ago from Ontario. I was a registered kinesiologist, ergonomist by trade. My company is called ergonomicshelp.com. I do assessments. I'm very passionate with ergonomics. I wanted to expand my network, meet as many peeps as I can, because I'm always loving to grow my network as much as possible and help me, help you, help you, help me type of thing. But my main, other than ergonomics assessments, the main part of my time is teaching other healthcare professionals how to get into ergonomics and then how to market their services, because it's kind of tricky.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. I've been following you, and I really like the different things you have that you're offering, and I look forward to looking through your emails as they pop into my inbox. So thank you.
Well, thanks. So I'm such a big fan of you too, Angela. I just love everything that you're doing. I'm a big fan. So that's why I wanted to come on too.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sonia.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Sonia. I graduated from a kinesiology degree from Waterloo in 2017. Between then and now, had a few ergo jobs and clinical jobs. I'm currently working at Amazon as an injury prevention specialist, so mostly focusing on industrial ergonomics in a warehouse setting, MSD prevention. So I'm really excited to get some good knowledge. I actually have experience using a metric force gauge in the past, so there's that. Yeah, really looking forward to tonight's session and getting a little bit more information about PDAs and doing this as a side business and doing assessments and whatnot. So looking forward to some of the conversations tonight.
Oh, good. Fantastic. Now, are you doing any ergonomics work currently then at Amazon? Is it part of what you're hoping to get into?
Yeah, so yeah, my role at Amazon right now focuses on ergonomics. So doing ergo assessments for injury prevention and reaction to some of our current problems that we're having. But I'm looking for the future to do ergonomic consulting on the side and see where that can take me as a business and self-employment.
Nice, that's great. Down to Christiane. Hello from way up north.
I know we're actually having a snowstorm right now, so that's kind
of you are.
Interesting. That's how far up north I am. Yeah, so my name is Christiane. I'm a kinesiologist. I did the MPK program at U of T, and now I'm working in a hospital as a kinesiologist. It's a little bit of everything. So I do acute care, long-term care, and outpatient. It's kind of interesting because basically one of my roles is there's this massive waiting list for physio, and I can actually try to reduce that list by taking on some of those people myself. So it's just trying to figure out like what kind of caseload I'm comfortable with. I'm trying to increase my own familiarity with different programs, like there's like work hardening, bunch of other injuries. So I'm just trying to familiarize myself with like a bunch of different things at once.
That's great. 30 years ago, when I bumped into a possible hospital position when I started my company, they said, nope, you're not regulated. You can't work in the hospital system. And I said, you have a 3-month waiting list. We have to sort this out. And they said, you can't work in the hospital. So that was how my business was born. So yeah, very similar. So times have changed and I'm happy about it. That's great to hear. Kevin, finally, over to you. Hello.
Hey, thanks, Angela. It's nice to join you guys here. Actually, I'm in Waterloo and it's pouring rain, and I think they talked about having some snow tonight. So we'll sort of see how that all goes. So yeah, I don't know. You want me to give you a little background on the stuff that I'm doing, I guess. Yeah. I've been a kinesiologist now for since like 1992, I guess. So a little while. And I've predominantly worked in the, I guess, disability assessment, return to workspace that sort of entire time. I did spend a little bit of time in a sports injury rehab clinic, delivering hot packs and cold packs. And that kind of was what led me to decide that there was no way that I wanted to be working for somebody else for the rest of my life. So when I was working at clinic, realized that as a kinesiologist at that time, I needed some autonomy. I was fortunate enough to actually be at the very first clinic in Toronto that had purchased an Archon FCE system. Nobody knew how to use that technology. There was sort of a kin there before me who said they had this kind of cool thing in the corner, but he didn't really know very much about computers and couldn't really figure out how it worked. So I actually got this thing going, contacted the company in the States to say, hey, what would you use this for? Like, what is an FCE? And that's we're like mid-90s. There's not really a whole lot of functional testing going on at this time at all in Canada. So I was fortunate enough to be at a clinic, Columbia Rehab, which is a precursor to LifeMark. So they had some funding behind them. And so during my conversations with the company in the States, they fed me information on how to set this stuff up. And we sort of started contacting workers' compensation boards and insurance people and saying, hey, you should try this out. Within a year, we had set up 13 sites within Columbia to do the FC testing. I went from delivering hot packs, cold packs at 22 to being in the head office of Columbia Rehab downtown Toronto and being in a boardroom with a bunch of bigwigs and leading all of their independent medical evaluation programs and all that kind of fun stuff. So I set up and worked for Columbia just under 2 years. And then Archon approached me and said, would you like to, sort of take over our Canadian business because we need somebody in Canada full-time. And so I started working for Archon full-time in 97 and was there for 8 years. I think that's where I met you, right, Chris? Yeah, so I met Chris at that time, so again, with Archon, they were a computerized functional capacity evaluation system. As a company, they didn't have any clinicians at all. They were completely technical. So they had had the computer programmers, and they had like engineers, but they didn't have anyone who knew any of the clinical stuff. So I developed up all of their training to teach clinicians. They didn't even think that there was a market for it. Like they didn't even think that
You're kidding.
they didn't. They just wanted to like,
Imagine that.
they just wanted to
I
train
know.
people. They just wanted to like teach people how to turn the computer stuff on. They didn't think that there was any need to like, they just didn't know.
There's
that
no
you would-
applicate like
that
knowledge transfer.
that clinicians would need to know how to do any of this stuff. So, so yeah, I developed up their functional capacity evaluation training program. Literally taught that around the world for Archon, and probably would have stayed on there longer, except I was on a plane like every week flying out of Toronto to wherever, and just decided it wasn't really the lifestyle that I wanted to have any longer. And I had a wife and some young kids, and so I just said, no, I'm going to give up this crazy good job. And that's when I started Metriks, and thought I would do this all on my own. So Metriks started in 2004, and so pleased to say I'm still running Metriks at this particular time. So I'm sort of happy to, if there's any entrepreneurs out there who want to sort of talk about, there's the fun part about getting your business started, as Angela and I know, but there's the other part about it, which is to keep the thing going for a really long time. Takes another kind of another type of energy. So so Metriks has led me into some interesting and fun places. We began just sort of selling other people's stuff and selling education courses. And then eventually we started to make our own stuff. And I think I'm apologizing. Who said they used my at Amazon? Was that right? Yeah. So yeah, we started building push-pull devices. So we built our own push-pull devices. Built my own digital inclinometer. I just literally got in a new dexterity tray that we put together. So decided we want to have some of our own stuff, unique stuff that, I mean, I always laugh because literally stuff you can't buy on Amazon, I guess, is kind of the products you wanted to make. You can buy hand grips and heart rate monitors and all that kind of stuff. So but there are some specialty items that you can't really get on Amazon. So those are the kind of products that we wanted to build. And then we decided to build a software application. So Archon was a software application, and eventually in 2008 decided I would build my own software application. So we built a software application to collect data for functional capacity evaluations, and have more recently sort of sprung off and done job demands analysis software, a really tiny ergonomics piece, like an office ergonomics piece that we have. So nothing too dramatic on the ergonomics side of things, but really more on the job demands analysis and the functional capacity evaluation component. We've had good pickup on those products. So we have clinics all across Canada that utilize that. We have clinics all across the US. We just set up a new distributor and stuff in the UK. So we have a whole series of clinics all across the United Kingdom. And so we've done training, again, through Metriks, South Africa, Australia. So it's sort of become very international. So that's been very fun. I'm at a point where the last number of years got involved with some universities. So I'm teaching typically one course a year at University of Guelph Humber. They have a functional capacity and physical demands analysis course that they do there.
That's Denise Gardner's course?
Yeah, Denise Gardner has, well, she's barely been there that much, but she used to do that part of it. So that was part of their occupational biomechanics. So I've modified that program quite a bit. This last term we did, we actually worked because they have paramedic and firefighter students. So we were able to, the paramedics and firefighters had to do pre-employment testing. And so they have to be able to pass pre-employments to become firefighters. So we were able to get the kinesiology students to do a job demands analysis of the pre-employment test that they had to do, and then set up a rehabilitation program to help them pass that particular test. So that gave them the skills to be able to analyze a job, and then the skills to be able to come up with, someone else in this group already mentioned, like a work hardening program. So work hardening really isn't any different than a regular treatment, other than it has different goals. And so we were able to create a work hardening program with the goal of the paramedic and firefighter students being able to pass the criteria required for them to become firefighters. Then we were able to test the firefighters, so that for us conceptually brings in the functional capacity concept. So we were able to test them at the beginning of term to say, hey, here's where you are. Here's what your goals are. So that was a job demands analysis piece. And then run their training program, which gives them work hardening, and then repeat the testing at the end point. And then in the middle, the ergonomics piece that we're doing with the students was to do an office ergonomics piece, so that we could sort of teach my students how to do office ergonomics, but then also be able to interact with the paramedic and firefighter students on how to do that stuff. So that program is kind of like, when I stepped in there like 7 years ago, it was primarily lectures on like what workers' compensation is, like what work, it was a little bit on workers' compensation, but it was like workplace safety and health programming was all about. It was not at all practical. There wasn't really any interaction on kind of stuff. And so we've kind of we've moved in some interesting directions inside there as well. We have done the same thing with Lakehead University. So Lakehead has a postgraduate kin program up there. And so with Lakehead, I go up and do, and that's a photo that you had on your Facebook page. So go up and do a couple of days of job demands analysis and functional capacity. But I've worked with Catherine Sinden, who's running that particular program there. And so we sort of tried to tailor those two programs together so that we kind of come out like the post-grad that we're doing at Guelph sort of follows a very similar program to what we're doing up at Lakehead on that side of stuff there. So, and then more recently, I've been, I know we had a UW student here, so just started working with UW, like kind of on, Steve Fisher has been really big into functional capacity evaluation stuff. And so we were fortunate enough that we're both in the same city here, and sort of spent the whole summer meeting up once a week and talking about how we can kind of collaborate and do some work on kind of making both those kind of programs more interesting on that side. So that's kind of my, I don't know, for me, the kind of fun stuff that I'm doing is kind of working with students. I love students. I love the undergrad kind of thing. I mean, undergrad and postgrad stuff. It's just a ton of energy. So that's kind of where I'm drawing my my sort of fun inspiration from things right now. So I think that's a reasonable estimate. I mean, I guess you and I met at a through a university college program, right, Angela, through Sheridan. So we did some very interesting collaborative work, and so that's kind of been my thing. I think you inspired me to the collaboration idea. I'll be honest, that was something that hadn't really occurred to me. So that sort of concept of collaboration was something Angela had given to me, but I don't even remember what year we did that at Sheridan.
You know, it was 2012.
2012.
I looked into that.
Wow.
Yeah, and you and I
Okay.
knew each other, but we hadn't really worked together.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was an opportunity that popped up, and I thought, wait a minute, I know someone who can help me with this project. So yeah, I was glad that worked out. We won $90,000 in funding for that particular project that we did. So that was a lot of fun to be able to put that together. What I like about what Kevin's doing is really making occupational biomechanics, if you think about it, we could call it ergonomics, but I think when you're looking at it inside an academic institution, you're teaching occupational biomechanics. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Is it ergonomics? Is it occupational biomechanics? Is it health and safety? Is it all of those things mixed in together and shaken up? I like how students are starting to see that it can start with a post-offer pre-employment screen. Then you do physical demands analysis to take a look at the job itself, not the worker in the job, but the job itself. And then you do the functional capacity or functional abilities evaluation to see, well, does the worker now fit the demand? And if not, then identifying those items that you'll be putting into the work hardening program. And then there's the reassessment piece, which would be an additional functional capacity evaluation. And there may be an office ergonomics adjustment needed or risk hazard analysis needed on the other side. So you can see how all those services flow. So it makes sense that as a kin, you would know how to do each of those pieces from soup to nuts. You'd have to know how to navigate through that whole series.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of been my inspiration. I think again, I hate to say the Americans are ahead of us, but they're sort of constantly in front of us in a lot of this stuff. And I've been well connected with the US. Arcon was a Virginia-based company. And so I look at the trends in the US, and I mean, kinesiology doesn't really exist, unfortunately, out in the US. But I look at what physical therapists are doing down in the in the US, and it's predominantly working directly with employers. So, I mean, they've been driven there because workers' comp is private insurance and those kind of things. So it's being driven there by different reasons. But I think the therapists really like that interaction. They work directly with employers, and they offer much more, they offer a very sort of rounded service. And I kind of look at, you and I sort of threw around, the concepts of occupational biomechanics, and then we threw around the idea of industrial athlete a little while ago. And so there's been some interesting articles written on the concept of industrial athlete. I think in the course that I just recently I try to rebrand it away from industrial, because I think now that we're moving, away from, a more traditional physical and into more cognitive kind of based job demands and those kind of things, that, it's more like a workplace athlete. And I think from a kinesiology perspective, I think we all quote unquote want to work with athletes. And so if we think about the worker as an athlete, then it kind of makes it a little bit more attractive to kinesiologists to kind of go, oh, that's what we're trying to do. And it works well for employers. I mean, from the employer perspective, I mean, it's a pretty interesting sell, because you're sort of saying, hey, look, you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars maintaining all of your machines. Why aren't you spending any money maintaining the people that operate those machines, right? So that's the pitch, and so that really the post-offer pre-employment piece fits in really nicely with that kind of world. And then I didn't.
Occupational athlete.
Yeah, the occupational athlete. And then we didn't really mention, but we talked to, I think you and I talked about this idea that now the next kind of trend, and I think if I was a kinesiologist, I would get into the cognitive piece. So now, so I do have a relationship with a company called BrainFX. BrainFX does cognitive, the actual cognitive testing, which can be done by kinesiologists, which is like super exciting. The group that works with BrainFX is updating what I would call the gold standard in cognitive demands analysis, which was stuff that was done out of the city of Toronto. And so they've been working with occupational therapists across Canada to come up with this new cognitive demand structure, and Metriks will be writing the software application to automate that process, and we'll be doing the training on that side of stuff. So so I really think that that's kind of that's an interesting kind of part of the world. I know that there was somebody in this group said that they were working in a hospital. Is that right?
Yeah. Christiane.
Yeah. And so we're actually working with a hospital group out of Belleville, and and their biggest thing right now is doing cognitive demands analysis for all the nurses. So for them, the the nurses aren't not working for physical. I mean, they are like personal support workers. Obviously, if you've worked around, they do tend to get injuries a lot, but a lot of the nurses, it's post-traumatic stress disorder is kind of what's preventing these people from returning to work or taking sick days or any of those things. And so I'm working with two kinesiologists there, and they're working as part of a team with an occupational health doctor. But they're performing cognitive demands assessments to determine what the cognitive demands are, because they've already done the physical demand piece at the hospital, and then they're using brain effects to do the cognitive demands assessment to see whether or not this nurse is actually ready to go back. And then we're combining the cognitive demands assessment with a physical demands assessment and sort of packaging that whole thing up to navigate for the return to work piece on that side. So so it's really kind of fun to see all those kind of pieces kind of finally coming together. And again, allowing for kinesiologists to kind of be the lead in those areas, and that's kind of
so KINs
nice
can
feeling.
do the cognitive abilities evaluations, or is that mostly OTs?
No, so the way that Brain Effects has set it up is certainly kinesiologists will be able to do the cognitive demands analysis piece, so the analysis of the jobs to determine what the cognitive pieces are. And like the current mechanism that we have set up for that already has standards in place so that we can look at similar to what we do on the physical side. On the physical side, we typically rank things as like occasional, frequent, and constant, sedentary, light and medium and heavy. And then on the cognitive side, we're using like a 1 to 4 ranking thing to look at all the cognitive demands on that side there. And so certainly kinesiologists can perform that piece. But then even on the assessment side, the brain effect side of things, kinesiologists can assess the cognitive function following this brain effects protocol to look at the cognitive piece, and then they're just using they're looking at that data and putting the people into those categories. So as long as you're doing as long as you're not planning on doing or suggesting that you're capable of doing the treatment, because that would be outside of your scope, assuming that you haven't had particular training on that side, then that would be all right to do.
Oh, very good. Sandy just had a question about how do KINs get training to do the cognitive demands analysis?
To do the cognitive demands analysis, I can teach them how to do it now using the current mechanisms. Like I said, the City of Toronto came up with a cognitive demands analysis strategy, so I can walk them through the process, and I have done that a number of times, walk them through the process on that side. We haven't officially released our cognitive demands analysis training, only because we've been waiting for this working group to finish up with this new standard. So we didn't, as you know, building a training course is a reasonable amount of work. So we didn't really want to, we didn't want to build a training course wrapped around something that was going to go obsolete relatively soon. Right. But from a foundational knowledge standpoint, it's not the process of doing a cognitive demands analysis assessment isn't going to fundamentally change in the next little while. It's just more of the categories. So we're still going to be looking at like what working memory is required to do this particular job. What's the stress level that is at this particular job? Is there distraction or things like that? So the categories will be the same. It's just the way that we're ranking them and the methodology that we're utilizing to rank those systems will change. So I can certainly offer sort of private training, I guess maybe was what we would talk about at that particular slide, to show people how to walk through that particular process. And then we'll be sort of doing more of a standard public training. Probably at this point, it's probably going to be 2021, I would think, before we'll actually be around to doing anything on those lines.
Cool. So Kevin would be the one to watch, Sonia. Keep your eye on Kevin and send him a note to say, okay, ready for private training. I can see that there's an opportunity in my workplace.
And I can send you stuff. Like if you want to send me a message or whatever, I can send you material to show you what I'm talking about. Like I'm not here to sell to sell the training thing. If you need to stop, I can direct you and all that kind of thing. Really, for me, the training piece is really for people who get really worried that they need to be certified in a particular area, and that's really where you want to get those credentials. But if it's just really information you want, I'm more than happy to pass along information that I have. I'm not trying to hoard any information from people. I'm really, like, as Angela taught me, I'm really all about collaboration with people. So I literally got a call from Western University just a few months ago, and they were asking about this kind of stuff and how they would be able to set it up. And I said, hey, look, I have a whole program already set up. I'm happy to share the entire thing with you guys. No fees, just go ahead and use it and teach the students the material. So I'm really here to try and get the information. I think the market is big enough for us to get the information out. We still need to build it out. We don't need to be hoarding and sort of keeping things to ourselves. So I think we need to get that information out there. So I'm more than happy to help people in that kind of venue for sure.
That's great. So Sonia, we'll post information about how to reach Kevin, or he'll let you know, and we can connect you there.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, Chris, for sure. You can see that Kevin is hinting about quite an area that will be emerging for kinesiologists. And you can also see that he's poking around with collaborations, being approached by universities, likely being approached by hospital corporations who are going to want these put in place. So he's testing it likely with Quinty Health Corporation, but what about University Health Network? What about Scarborough Health Network? I mean, he's testing the model, and then once you've dusted it off and got it all shiny, you're going to start shopping it around. So Kevin may need some people that can help him roll it out and do some teaching. So I'm just going to jump in there and just decide on Kevin's next business model. So there you go, which I tend to do. So I mean, there's lots of opportunities.
Yeah, Angela's 100% correct. I mean, I don't typically work with companies because we just generally do the training piece. That's kind of our thing. But when I was approached by the occupational health doctor in Belleville, and he talked about what they were doing, I recognized that it would give us some boots to the ground with a lot of really cool ideas that we had, and actually get to see them in real time. And so that's kind of a fun thing to be able to do, and you kind of learn a lot of different things. So we've been able to tailor some of the stuff that we're doing on that. With brain effects in terms of the cognitive stuff, by literally delivering it to nurses and getting their feedback and seeing how it works with the return to work piece, and then understanding the whole, how workers' comp is going to accept all that kind of stuff as well. So, yeah.
That's really cool. There's a couple of things that I think we could dive into here. One is talking with Darcy a little bit about her mission to bring ergonomics, occupational biomechanics to healthcare professionals, I'm going to say, just in general, to say, you don't have to be an ergonomist. You don't have to go through extensive collection of hours and very specific branded training in order to call yourself, in order to do these evaluations, in order to make these recommendations, in order to approach companies with your ideas. So it's not something that's regulated. It's not something where the doors are closed at all. You can do these things. And so that's what Darcy's mission is to bring the skills that Kevin is talking about to the people, to the masses. Do you want to speak to that a little bit, Darcy?
Yeah, and thanks for bringing me into the conversation. I definitely was taking some notes, Kevin, because I've been talking to my people about branching into more industrial evaluation. So I was saying maybe start off with office, because there's such a low overhead with getting into office ergonomics. You just need to know, well, in Canada, there's standards. And that's where I based my content from, because I think, well, I'm pretty biased, but I think Canada has the best ergo standards. But after that, there's going to be, much like you were explaining, Angela, like once you know how to do the FCE or PDA, it unlocks this whole system that you can help clients with. So office ergonomics, you get into the front office, but then you figure out they have a shop floor. So industrial ergonomics, what are some simple tools you can need? You need to measure, you have to measure force. And now I know about Kevin's company, Metriks, and I can send them your way.
You didn't know about Kevin's company prior
I didn't
to this?
know.
Oh,
No,
I'm so sorry. I
didn't
realized,
know.
Darcy, have you
I'm
talked to Kevin? I'm sorry. I'm falling down on my old networking thing that I love to do.
I'm out of the
and you
loop.
should
I
meet.
think, yeah, we should meet. Yeah, and maybe Kevin, if you're interested, we can do something like this for my people. So, mostly my market is Americans, but they're healthcare professionals. A lot of OTs are very interested in learning how to do ergonomics, and I tell the folks, like, these are people who are burning out of their normal practice, and especially in the States, there's dwindling insurance reimbursements that just keeps on lowering, it's burning these people out. So they're realizing that office ergonomics are really practical. And I'm a board certified professional ergonomist. And other than like going for particular jobs in government, no one cares. No one cares whatsoever.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
That's what I
shocking.
thought, because you and I have chatted about that, but I wasn't quite sure what the overall sentiment was. Okay.
Yeah, the clients, and I love to deal with corporate, but there's definitely different niches that you can work with, and it all depends on your messaging, of course, but I love corporate because they're so leveraged. So I can get in and do lots of assessments and not have to market a lot. But every corporate client I've ever had doesn't care. Just it's like, hey, you seem to know what you're talking about, come on in. And that's what I hear too, like when corporate people, that they just bring anyone in because they have something that's on fire and they're just like, just fix it. I have all these other things I need to do. You seem like you know what you're doing. So really that's all it is. And I always like to say to people, there's people who are less skilled than you who are making some income and helping the community, and you're probably more skilled, especially if you're here tonight talking about this type of stuff. I like to assume like you are the cream of the crop. Yeah.
So Sanya, exactly. You don't have to be the CPE recognized healthcare pro. It will help you in particular markets depending upon what kinds of companies you'd like to work with. But Kevin, can you speak to that? Have you run into any situations where people have said, do you have this qualification? Why is it that you're designing equipment, writing software, teaching students, delivering assessments? Like, who are you to be doing this kind of thing?
I guess personally, I haven't been challenged on that part of it, I'll be honest.
Right.
But I do literally every day get asked, well, what are the regulations related to performing a job demands analysis or a functional capacity evaluation? And I say, there are none. Anybody can do this. Like, but I said, saying that, all, like Darcy was saying, all systems are self-regulated. So a self-regulated system just means that the payer will decide who it is that they would like to have perform these services. And so you'll see insurance systems will decide that maybe they want regulated professional to do this particular service, or a company will decide they only want OTs to do this service. So it changes jurisdiction to jurisdiction. It changes, company to company. And so, but I do tell people that the purpose of your training is if you do get into problems. I mean, so you can say that you don't need to be certified, and you can say you don't need to be trained, but if you run into some problems, that's where you're going to fall back. If someone gets hurt or someone gets injured, then someone's going to be suing you, and you need to prove that it's within your scope of practice to be able to perform this thing, and you may have to prove that you actually have expertise in this particular area. But having spoken to people who've gone down even that path, the depth of that is just really that they have to prove that they've done something. They have done some sort of educating of themselves towards that particular purpose, so that they have so they can have proof of competency. Just this week, I was speaking to the Canadian Memorial Chiropractic College has a continuing education section to it. So I'm collaborating with them. I kind of get involved with too many things. So I've been working. I used to teach at CMCC, so we were talking about this very thing, because in the US, continuing education credits is a massive mess of things. And like if I wanted to deliver continuing education credits, there's no universal standard that you can utilize. And I was talking to CMCC. I said, hey, what about you guys? You guys are selling courses, and you guys are an institute that can actually give away real degrees and stuff. And he's like, yeah, we don't even do it. Like, we just tell the students they need to figure that out on their own. But he sort of delivered exactly the same message that I was delivering to you, which is that you do want to have certification, so that, or training to prove, but it's really going now in a competency based piece. So they're moving away from this idea. He believes that continuing education hours will be a thing of the past, and it will become all about competency. And so as long as your course has a competency component to it, so that you can prove what competencies, then the number of hours that your courses will become irrelevant. And we're already seeing that with this push towards online education. So like I just threw up my office ergonomics course, and I was getting a bunch of people saying, well, how long does it take to do? I'm like, I have no idea how long it takes to do. How long does it take you to read the article? Like, I mean, how much time are you going to spend watching the video? Are you going to watch it 2 times? I don't actually know how long it's going to take the students to go through. So identifying the continuing education hours seems ridiculous. So that's why I was so thrilled to hear this idea that as long as you put out and say, here are the learning objectives, here are the competencies that we're going to be covering, and therefore the student who receives a certification will then be able to say, I have these competencies, and here is the proof, because I've taken this program that's given me this thing. So I'm also thrilled to hear from Darcy's standpoint that she's finding the same thing, because that's what we've been seeing out there.
CEUs are great, are bananas in the States. It's like, yeah, absolutely. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just wanted to chime in. Yeah, it's
really, really interesting. We have many more conversations to have in this whole continuing education space, I can tell.
Yes.
So this is not to knock the CCPE designation at all. This is to say that you do not need that certification in order to do what you do as a kin. You need to show a competency in the areas of kinesiology in which you've been trained, no matter where you are in Canada. And so, like Kevin was saying with CMCC, chiropractors, OTs, kins, physios, nurses, physicians, we're all able to do these things. All we need to do is show that we've been trained to do these things, because these things fall within our scopes of practice collectively. They would fit in, I would think, with any of those healthcare pros, right? So as a kin, you don't need to say, I'm not an ergonomist, I'm not a chiro, I'm not an OT. You can feel that you are well able to get the skills, recognizing that you either took them at school and feel quite comfortable doing what you do, or you might reach out to Darcy or to Kevin to say, I need some additional training. Chris, can I shadow you as you do an assessment? You're going to be collecting your own education, and then by virtue of your resume, your CV, you're showing your competencies. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, and I think I saw it. Was it Senya? Is that how you pronounce her name?
Anya.
Sonia. Oh, sorry.
All good. All good.
You were saying that you're on the route to be a CCCPE, and I like to say, like, you never know how your life changes. Like, I'm happy I went through the United States version of BCPE. I went back through that process like 10 years ago, and that was before I had kids, and my life is totally different now, and I would never have the bandwidth to ever do anything like that ever again. But you never know what things are going to change in the future, right? In 10 years from now, what's going to change in the market. So of course it takes the pressure off your shoulders, because I don't think it's not necessary. I agree with what Kevin and Angela are saying. You need to be competent, you have to have experience, you need to know how it works, you need to be really educated. But I hope that takes the weight off your shoulder, knowing that there's always options.
A little bit, yeah. You know, to be honest, the reason I was working towards is because I assumed that, you know, this is something that corporations would want, especially the bigger companies or even medium-sized companies. They typically look for other designations in other professions. So I just assumed, okay, well, we have this designation in Canada or in the States, and that, you know, most of the time they would want to do that validation and ensure that we actually have the credentials. But it's really good to hear. And I just mentioned, like, I do listen to your podcast and look at your blogs as well. And that is a reoccurring theme that you do mention. And it's kind of like kicking to me, you know, just start now. Why wait? So thank you.
Yeah, exactly. I think you just get clever with your title. You could call yourself an occupational biomechanist. You could call yourself, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to call yourself an ergonomist. You define your title. You're an RKIN with a specialty in occupational biomechanics. You know, it's a little bit of the Wild West still, and that's okay. I think that's to me, that just means that there's space to grow and more room to educate employers and each other about what we do.
Yeah, like I just did some work this week with a company out of Texas, and I've been working with them for maybe 6 months or so, and it is shocking. I mean, they're getting new contracts every day. They know nothing. They literally and the owner doesn't know anything. They have nurses that are doing the assessments, and no offense to nurses, but the nurses are doing the assessments, and they have like next to no but they're getting these massive contracts to do post-offer pre-employment testing, to do ergonomic assessments. And they're literally contacting me and I'm to them, I'm really just their computer programmer, but they're saying, Kevin, I just got this contract. I'm going to send you over all the job demands analysis. Can you just put it in the program so my nurses just have to push the button so we can generate these reports? And this is like the state. So I'm like, the first time I called down the nurse, I said, oh, I heard you're doing this thing with these, with the trucking company. Like, what can you tell me about this job? And she's like, oh, I don't know anything about this. I mean, those guys just kind of come in and then we just tell them do this, this, and this, and we just check the boxes. And I was just like, oh my gosh, okay, fine, that's where we are. But I try and tell these stories to let people know that, like, you do just need to kind of go out there, and because once you start to see what other people are doing, I think you realize that, you know, that you can be performing these services, and that the level, the bar isn't necessarily all that high. And I think that's what sometimes maybe kinesiologists in particular get prevented from doing things, because they're sort of expecting that things are going to be at a different level than they actually are. So you're probably very knowledgeable relative to lots of different people out there.
It's really good to hear. Really good to hear. We approached a company that I was working with, an executive medical clinic. And I said, so you do executive medicals, what else do you do? They're like, what do you mean? And I said, well, you've got some head honchos coming through here. Head honchos. find out a little bit about what they're doing, ask them if they need some help from an executive medical team. And so we were able to land a massive contract for the TTC and do all their post-offer pre-employment screens for subway, for bus, for streetcar, you name it. And they said, well, who are we to be doing this? And I said, you hire a kin team that works within your company umbrella, and we just bring in all the new staffers. And we're right at Queen and we were at, what was it, Queen and University. They're right there. And we just had a revolving door for everyone from the TTC for a few years. And it was a lot of fun. But to Kevin's point, think outside the box a little bit, have a bit of a plan, a bit of a framework that's flexible, and start approaching some of the bigger companies. And do you have physical demands analyses for all the different roles in your company? Have you done any post-offer pre-employment screening to make sure your employees really fit the job demands so that you reduce lost time and injuries? And you know all this stuff, it's just a matter of kind of putting that plan around it. And then start. The worst thing that they can say is no, and then you go to the next one and knock on their door and you think, how do I refine my pitch to get their attention a little differently? So. The other area I wanted to go into was talking about what you might charge for some of these services, because a lot of people are wondering, what would you charge for a PDA? What would you charge for an FCE? What does it look like to do a post-offer pre-employment screen? So maybe we can talk about how long each of these different assessments take and what kind of price tag as you as a kin charging, not through an employer, but charging out those services yourself. What would you charge? Does anyone have any numbers we can put to those? Let's start with a jobs demand, a physical demands analysis. What might we say?
My recommendation would be to flat fee most of those services. So like
Yes.
not to go in on an, not to charge anything on an hourly basis. And so what we've seen, like job demands analysis and post-offer pre-employments will be dependent upon volume. So depending on how many that you're going to do, or even office ergonomics. And I just wanted to quickly go back to Darcy's point too, that the office ergonomics is a great like loss leader if you're looking for some way to get involved in kind of things.
Nice.
I just realized that because I threw up that office ergonomics course and it's been the most popular course I've ever put up, and it's only been up there for like a week and a bit. So anyway, so that's this also giving me encouragement to go with the office ergonomics. I would go flat fee services on the job demands analysis. I'm seeing that from the people that I talk to, anywhere from like 450 to 900, kind of flexible in that kind of range. Functional capacities range anywhere from like 750 to 1500. Sort of the average kind of costs that you have on those things. Office ergos I've seen sort of all over the map in terms of stuff. I've seen as low as $50 for an office ergonomic assessment. More often sort of sitting in around the $150 mark. My students put together, I got them to do a little research for me. So if anyone's interested, I can give you guys some pricing stuff. So I got my students to contact, I got my students to contact a bunch of practitioners, and we put together a bunch of pricing across the country. So I can give you guys some better ideas of what other people are charging for these. It's one of the advantages of having students who they can just kind of call people up and say, hey, how much do you charge for this? I'm just not a student. I just want to know how much you charge for this service. It's good for them to learn too. Like they just kind of get to know the different companies that are out there doing stuff, and kind of get familiar with that kind of marketplace.
Great idea.
On that side. Post-offer pre-employments, again, 300 seems to be kind of the typical fee that people are charging for the post-offer pre-employment thing. But again, those things would be flexible based on how many you're doing. But a post-offer, typically like in and out, like in an hour is kind of like what you're looking at in terms of the time frame. I think I saw someone throw up the two-day FCE. You're typically looking at about 50% more than you would charge for a one-day functional capacity evaluation. And Job demands analysis, like you're looking at sort of 2 to 3 hours is kind of your typical job demands analysis kind of a piece that we're, at least with, we're hearing back there. And then you still have a report to write on top of that. And then your functional capacity evaluation, again, very varied because the length that people are doing, but if you're looking at sort of a 3 to 4 hour data collection time frame for that point, then writing up your report.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Sonia's just asking, any typical ranges for industrial ergonomic assessments or risk analyses?
I mean, industrial ergo, again, is going to be dependent on like how detailed, like whether you're running like a ruler, a Reba, and a Liberty Mutual table. Like it sort of depends how detailed of an assessment that you need to look at. Generally, people are adding that onto like a job demands analysis. So we're sort of seeing it like you do the job demands analysis, then plus the ergo kind of sitting on top of the job demands analysis. So like kind of a premium of $300 to $400 on what you might charge on top of a job demands analysis.
Sweet.
And again, if people are looking, the coolest site, Vancouver proper has published all of their job demands. So Vancouver, Victoria, wow. So you can get like every job that's available in those places. I've actually gone through and taken all of the job demands analysis from there, taken all of the recommendations that they put in all of the job demands analysis, including all the ergonomic stuff. I don't know when I had time to do this. And I have it all in a single document. So again, I'm happy to share that because it's not mine, it's really public. Cool. So you can see what everyone else is saying, right? This is what and it's super interesting. If you're into this kind of stuff, to see the different styles of job demands analysis that are out there. And you can sort of see like the 1-page report versus the 5-page report, the guy that does lots of ergo kind of stuff in his job demands analysis. So it's a really great resource. I recommend it to everybody every time I see anybody out there. I'm happy to share the link to that site, and then I can send you the document that I put together. It kind of puts all that stuff into a single spot.
Fantastic. It's really fantastic. Thanks so much for that. Kins, colleagues, friends, can you see the earning potential here? See it? It's much different here, right? In this whole space.
I have yet to make the same amount of money in clinical kin as I ever made in ergo when I graduated in '94.
Yes. Yes.
So yes, if you can do the ergo, get in there. And if you like it, get in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you. Our biggest contracts were these kinds of contracts. Maybe Chris, you can speak to that as well. Maybe you're unplugged. You're not muted. Mike isn't working. Oh no. Oh no. Chris has stories. Check your microphone in the bottom left of your Zoom screen. Maybe you just have to change your speaker and your input, Mike. See what it says. So Emma is asking, do you think there will be more office ergo assessments now that people work from home rather than in the office? You might have to be doing some remote home-based office ergos. Maybe you've got a brand there, the WFH ergo, right?
Have to get registered first.
What's that?
Just have to get registered first.
Well, you may want to grab the URL and grab a few things with a little bit of a brand name before you get registered. Sorry, Darcy, you were going to say.
Sorry to interrupt. I was going to say it's all comes down to whether it's work from home or corporate. It all comes out to selling it, you know. So I just, I forgot what I was going to say, but it was, you know, it's like how you position it, how you sell it. So there's always an angle. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just
Chris, you're
curious.
back.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm just curious. You know, sometimes I struggle with the idea of getting, like, how do you get in the front door? That's the thing, right? Like, I've thought about offering the services on my own, setting up shop, yeah, and all that stuff. But how do you get in the front door? Like, who do you contact? How do you get in there? That's I think the stumbling block for me a little bit. Any suggestions
Kevin?
on that?
Any thoughts
I mean,
on that?
I like, I mean, if you, are you looking, Chris, at doing like, what type of service are you looking at trying to promote though, I guess would be a good question to start with.
All of these industrial assessments, Ergo, FCEs, PDAs, I've got tons of experience doing them, but I've always done them for someone else.
Right.
And I'd like to start doing them for myself. Well,
I mean, I think I really like Darcy's point, and like I said, this Office Ergo seems to be an interesting right? And so that would be a reasonable, because it's, again, it's a service you can charge relatively little money for, and it gets you in the door, it gets you talking to people. And I think Darcy already mentioned how it then, oh, hey, there's all these other things in behind. I mean, Angela's angle is interesting, but it's a little bit more work. I know a group of kinesiologists who did the executive medical piece. So there are executive medical companies out there, like your MedCans and stuff like that, that are doing executive medicals, and that gives you access to the upper echelon of people. That, you know, that may be a little bit more expensive in terms of the setup. But what it does lead me to think about, though, is the reason that the two kinesiologists are working for doing the job that they're doing in Belleville is because they had an occupational health doctor who already had the contract. So the other option would be to contact and see if you can't, you're not necessarily working for, but working alongside or collaborating with an occupational health doctor, right? So the occupational health doctors already have the things, but they're like, I've been working with these guys now for 7 or 8 months, and they're even though they have the stuff, they're super slow because they're busy doing all of the stuff that they normally used to do. So it's just a matter. So, I mean, the occupational health doctor is another angle that you could go in at and say, hey, look, we'd like to, what they would like to do is secure the business. They want to secure the hospital business. So at the hospital, he wanted to secure the business by having more angles in there. And because he's always worried because the hospital is going to kick them out at any one given time, because CBI used to provide a lot of the occupational health services as well for the hospital. And then he was providing them. So he's just trying to get his claws in there in as many places as possible to keep a hold of that business. And so that's the same thing that's going to be true because for any occupational health doctor, because they're effectively a third party, you know, for not an institute like Amazon or not Toyota, who can have their own occupational health people on site, but they're doing the third party kind of work. So that way might be another interesting piece. But again, I'd still go back. I like Darcy's idea. You throw that out there, and that kind of gives you your brand. Like, you start building out that brand a little bit that way, and I think you're going to see that it's going to lead to some interesting things from there for sure.
Well, thanks for that, Kevin. Darcy, I'm just curious. Like, so are you connecting with people on LinkedIn, like to get to even market those Office Ergo assessments and get your foot in the door, like initially? Is that just through networking, regular channels? Yeah, people responding to your posts and so on?
Yeah. So to answer your question with like a non-answer, whenever I'm looking for like a quick influx of money for my consulting business, it's never going to come from cold calls. I've never had any luck with cold calls ever. But how I've ever got the most traction for my consulting company is building the relationships, taking my time, building these are things that can take anywhere from 3 to 5 months to really grow, but there's multiple avenues. So you have the LinkedIn, you can go to networking events, you can talk to about occupational health and safety, similar audiences that serve your clients. There's you know, media release. There's so many different angles, but it's like really you have to pick a couple that you will feel will work in your area, depending how far you want to go, identify your niche market and start creating messaging around that.
Right.
like the quick answer would for me would be just stop cold calling. It's not, well, personally, it's never worked for me, unless like there's some sort of prior relationship.
Yeah.
And do the long hard work is like just building those relationships.
Right. Great advice. Yeah. Thank you. This is very motivational, I have to say.
Then I've achieved our goal for the week. That's great. That's fantastic. Any other questions for anybody about anything? We again blew right by the 8 p.m., which we usually do because the discussion just starts going in really interesting directions.
Yeah, I have a question, and this is open to anybody here. What would you recommend to get started? Like, did you start building a website? Did you kind of make a business model and kind of see what kind of services you could provide and figure out the cost of that? Any tips, tricks from your experience would be good from anybody here. Just looking to get some more information on that.
Built to last.
Always
the person with book recommendations. 2 books that I would recommend. There is Built to Last, which is professor down at Stanford, I think. He does a lot of like research on successful businesses and like what are successful practices. And a lot of it, when you read it, it sounds like common sense, but a lot of people don't do it. The other one, especially for women in business, there's a book called Business Boutique, and it kind of walks you through how to design a business and all that.
Thank you. Definitely will check them out.
My recommendation is, and this is the exact same thing that I would teach. Oh, is my internet going bad? I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of nowhere. That seems okay. This is the exact same process that I teach the people in my programs is like, whenever possible, just build an email list. And you can do this really easily through ConvertKit. ConvertKit's my favorite, but there's also MailChimp. I just really like ConvertKit. You can make a landing page, get a freebie out there. And then whenever you're posting content on anything, just start to collect emails, grow your list. And every so often, every quarter or so, you can make a promotion offer to your list because you don't need an email. I mean, sorry, you do need an email list, absolutely, but you don't need a website. You don't need a fancy website. You just need a landing page. That's it. And a landing page is something that you would set up through ConvertKit for free. And like a MailChimp, Angela, you're probably well versed with all these areas as well. But that's what I would do because if you're relying on social media to represent your business, they can change those algorithms overnight and totally change your organic reach. And then how do you communicate with people who are interested in your company? So that would be landing page, email list, get in contact with them, know, like, trust factor, and then make a quarterly promotion. That's it.
Love it.
101.
Yep.
Thank you for the advice. That's great.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Fabulous. Any other questions for anybody? I feel like there's a lot of stuff we can continue to talk about. Be happy to offer another discussion night about any particular area that people are interested in. Well, thank you for this, Kevin. I really appreciate your time and your insight. And every time I talk to you or hear from you, I'm amazed at your journey. So exciting, all the different things you've been able to explore over the years. And we've had many discussions and actually have decided to continue more discussions about how we can work together, which is one of my favorite things.
Well, thank you, Angela. Again, it was wonderful.
You're welcome.
These kind of opportunities are fantastic. I mean, this is a great way to build your business. Come to these kind of things.
Yeah.
Connect with connectors is always a good way of doing things because there are connectors out there. You're probably looking at some right now. So connect with those people, and they can connect you with other people. And so again, thank you so much.
Hey, Kevin, quick question. I just want to throw one in here. Looking for a force gauge rental or the purchase depending on the price, but do you rent force gauges?
Not typically, but I have. people I know for sure. That's not a problem. Yeah.
Okay. Do we know each other?
We do.
That way?
Absolutely.
Are we good?
Yes, we're good.
Okay. Awesome. I'll reach out to you then. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Deanna has a lot of very interesting stories and opportunities and long history working in Ergo as well. So I'd encourage you, everybody here, just reach out to each other and follow each other. And I think everyone here, if I could be so bold, wouldn't mind a phone call or an email to set up a time to chat about options and opportunities. So that's just how it's done over time. Well, thanks everyone. I'm going to wrap it up and I will post this recording so we can go back and listen to all the fun we had this evening. And I look forward to talking with all of you again next week.
Thanks.
Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Bye,
night.
Angela.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.